What's up, guys and gals? Your host with the most, Griever, as always, bringing you guys officially and finally 2022's The Next Piece of One Piece. My official top 30, which will likely change by the time I'm done editing this video, in all honesty. Making a top 30 list is a big thing in the power scale community when it comes to One Piece. A lot of people do it. A lot of YouTubers, Redditors, Discord users, everybody ends up deciding who is the strongest, who's on top, who can 1v1 who, right? Everyone makes a list. It's finally time I sat down and made my own list. Now, this list changed from right now when I first started the list. It has probably gone through about 12 revisions, just switching up some places and stuff, especially in the lower tier, and later on almost in the higher tier as well. Mid-tier pretty much stayed the same, but it's just the order of people. Because what a lot of people don't consider when they make their top 30 list is you are saying that number 7 can beat everybody else. Everyone below them. You know, when you number 12 can beat everybody below that. And what you're saying is the people above number 12, every character there can beat number 12. In all honesty, I find this list very difficult to make. And I find the idea of making a top 30 overall very, very difficult for a lot of reasons that we'll probably get into. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, but at the end of the day, here's officially my top 30 list. Hopefully, I'm sure nobody will agree with this list. I'm sure nobody will. And also, a lot of you will want to write your own list and your own comments in the description box down below. So without further ado, this is me with my top 30. Let's get started with the rules. Right? Every list needs rules. Rule number 1 is very obvious. Most people follow this, but some people still make their top 30 list regardless. No dead characters. Right? No Whitebeard, no Roger, no Odin, none of that. Okay? First and foremost. Rule number 2 is something that is not used on a lot of people's lists, but I'm going to use it. And that is the fact of the matter is I can't rank people that we literally pretty much know absolutely nothing about. Some people we've never even seen their face. I can't rank them. I just can't. I don't see it plausible to rank these people. For example, there will be, other than the first mate of Shanks' crew, Ben Beckman, there will be no Lucky Roo and no Yasopp here. Most of Blackbeard's crew will not be here. No Green Bull. No Dragon, no Kong, none of these people. You know why? We don't know what they can do. We don't know their status. We don't know how powerful they truly are. There isn't enough feats to showcase to us what they can do and how they battle. Maybe Dragon is the strongest in the verse. Maybe he's not even Admiral level. I have no idea. Nobody in the fandom has an idea. In all honesty, nobody knows. The Gorosei, another perfect example. Are the 5 members of the Gorosei? Are they Im-sama, another one that is left off this list? We have no way of knowing if this creature, this ruler of a throne without a ruler, has any feats, has any level of hockey, has any power, has a devil fruit. We have no idea. So there are a lot of characters that are going to be set aside for the rest of this video. So if certain characters do not appear on this list and you are wondering where they are, ask yourself the question if we even know what they can do yet, right? I mean, potentially the Gorosei are all Yonko level. Potentially they're weaker than goddamn Usopp. Who knows? None of us know, and so until we know better, leaving them off the top 30 list. Those are the only rules I have going into this one, so why don't we get started with, of course, we're going bottom to the top, and let's get underway. Now, my number 30 starts off with a little bit of a controversial pick. Of course, it's me, right off the bat, and that is the first mate of the Kid Pirates, Killer. Killer goes in the top 30, just barely squeaking by a lot of potential characters. In all honesty, this was one of my most debatable picks, but at the end of the day, what squeaked out Killer, who had to be on this list, was the fact that, on the matter, he is part of the Rooftop Gang. That has merit to me. Some of you say that that's just a fandom thing. That's just, it is what it is, yada, yada, yada. But at my stage, I'm saying that the strongest of the supernovas were on that roof. Everyone else is weaker. It's just the way it is. If you guys don't like that opinion, make your own list. But I believe that the strongest supernovas were on that rooftop. And Killer was on the roof. So Killer deserves the spot not only for actually managing to do damage, not only to Zoro, who many people, I don't know anybody who doesn't have Zoro on their top 30 list. This is a man who did damage to Zoro when we didn't know it was Killer necessarily, but still managed to fight against Zoro. And also first mate of Kid, that has a little bit of merit, being one of the only two first mates of the supernovas that aren't captains, Killer and Zoro respectively, and at the end of the day, managed to do semi-damage to Kaido, defeated Hawkins in a very impossible situation. There's a lot to say about Killer's abilities. I mean, he's on the bottom for a very solid reason. I don't think he's near the top whatsoever, or even mid-level quite yet. But the further in the story we go, I feel like Killer might end up inching his way up on this list. I don't think Killer's ever going to break through to the top 20, but putting him in the top 30 feels pretty good. Now, number 29, I saw on a lot of lists for a lot of years, honestly, and that is one of the commanders, of course, of the Whitebeard crew. That is Jozu, Diamond Jozu. I still believe that outside of the little mishap with Aokiji, and we've seen Diamond Jozu's ability managing to stop Mihawk even with his, of course, Diamond Devil Fruit abilities and such like that, Jozu still maintains, in my opinion, a contender. We have seen the abilities thus far of two separate Yonko crews in their entirety. Sure, granted, in Marineford we didn't get to a wholehearted amount of what capabilities necessarily all the members of Whitebeard's crew have, but at this point we have an extensive knowledge of both Big Mom's and Kaido's crew. And going off of that fact, and knowing the information we now know, being up to date in Wano, we can look back at Marineford and we can sort of see different Whitebeard commanders in a new light. I feel like that's quite relevant in this case. And Jozu did prove himself. Yes, did Jozu lose an arm? Of course. But Jozu was also fighting an admiral, fighting Mihawk. He was fighting warlords and admirals. This man was not losing. This man wasn't losing to vice admirals and other characters and other third-rate pirates. This guy wasn't fighting against Jack or anybody like that. No. This guy was holding his own off against the strongest warlord, period. I don't even think that's debatable, and fighting against an admiral. So, maybe not simultaneously necessarily, depends on what you want to go off, if you want to go off anime or manga, etc., etc. I'm not going to argue which one's canon and which one isn't. I'm just going to say right now that Jozu definitely still, in my opinion, deserves a spot on this list, and I realistically don't think there's many characters that would not, even if they could defeat him, it would be such a high fight where he's so defensive with his Devil Fruit ability. Alright, so number 28 is, of course, a fan favorite, and probably my favorite villain in the entirety of One Piece. And some of you are going to argue a little bit of favoritism, a little bit of bias. It's my list. Of course, it's going to be bias and that type of stuff. But it's Crocodile, right? It's got to be Croco Boy. It's got to be the original bad boy. It's got to be the James Bond villain himself. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people are going to go, okay, you're doing this because he's a fan favorite. You're doing this because you love him. You're doing this for a lot of reasons. And I'm like, first off, he's an awakened Devil Fruit user. That's all but been confirmed. The entirety of the story. He's the one who introduced the idea. You could argue that Dofi was the one to introduce it necessarily, but a lot of you seem to forget Impel Down. A lot of you forget that awakened Devil Fruits were explained long before by Crocodile in Impel Down. So there is that measure. And I believe Crocodile's mastery, which once again, this is a bit of a problem with the fact that the story has gone on much longer than Oda predicted. Crocodile, of course, was confirmed by Oda himself to have been introduced far too early, now knowing what the story progressed into. And even the Viva card information refuses to acknowledge whether Crocodile has gained Haki, has Haki, and what types of Haki. I believe that once again, Haki was a late introduction after Oda realized the story was going too far. Haki was one of those things that, for the most part, it was a bit of a retcon, but it seeped into the story pretty well while nerfing certain key characters, and in this particular case, that was Crocodile. However, since Haki was retconned into the story, I believe that Oda, when Crocodile is reintroduced into the story, which I believe will happen, Crocodile will definitely appear with Haki. And maybe there'll be a lukewarm explanation as to why he did not use it in Alabasta. Maybe it'll be all about the focus on the mastery of his devil fruit. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's arguments abound. But at the end of the day, I believe that Crocodile will reappear in the story. This man was gunning for Whitebeard. He did gun for Dofi and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, he's just so badass. He's incredibly cool. He's the first one that we knew with a mastery of a devil fruit. You can argue the mastery is an awakened version. It's up to you guys to decide whether you believe that or not. I think Crocodile definitely has an awakened devil fruit, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Either way, I just don't see it. When Crocodile comes back, I sort of am putting Crocodile here for the sole purpose that when he does return, we've already seen his power, his abilities. And when he does return, I firmly believe that he will easily be on everybody's top 30 list. So this is a bit of me going a little preemptive, being on a little bit of faith, and it's also why Crocodile is very close near the bottom. It was sort of hard to put him on this list, but I think that my argument, alongside a little bit of bias, is relevant to the fact that, once again, Viva Card's released, and no mention, not that he doesn't have Haki, key thing, and not that he does have Haki or which types he would have. I believe there's a reason for that. I believe that Oda wants us to showcase Crocodile later on in the story in a big way, and I'm just holding out for that. And there's a lot of arguments for a lot of other characters in the same vein, so I definitely accept that premise as well. But either way, Crocodile, number 28. Mastery of the Sand Fruit. I mean, he's pretty strong in a desert. Now, after Crocodile for number 28, we have number 27 in the form of another Whitebeard commander known as Vista, the Swordmaster of the Whitebeard crew. Now, the one thing that I'm going to say before a lot of people are going to start typing, and how is Vista and Jozu on this list? How do you still have these guys on here and such like that? Well, once again, just so we're clear, we don't know the power of Lucky Roo and Yasop and etc. And I'm sure that they will be on the list. They're on a lot of people's lists right now without knowing a damn thing other than we assume that Shanks' crew is the strongest by quality over quantity of the crew, but we have no way of actually knowing that. Similar to Blackbeard's crew in a way as well. So, but based on what we know, Vista clashes with Mihawk. The strongest, and yes, we are going to use Mihawk as a milestone. People who don't want to use Mihawk as a milestone, I have no idea what they're reading. But Mihawk even says to Vista, after Vista says, "Oh, you know my name, I'm honored," he says, not exactly verbatim, but pretty much, "How could I not know a swordsman of your caliber? Of course I know who you are." Something along that line, that basically any who wields a blade knows of Mihawk, anybody who is anybody also knows of you, Vista. Vista has been a swordsman and is a clear, defined swordsman for a lot of years on Whitebeard's crew, one of the original members of Whitebeard's crew, as we saw from the Odin flashback, and has been with Whitebeard for so long. Mihawk acknowledges Vista as a worthy opponent, draws Yoru, and Vista and Mihawk end up clashing. Now, you could argue that was just a clash, depending on anime and yada yada yada, but at the end of the day, the fact that Mihawk acknowledges Vista as a capable swordsman as caliber, I think that speaks volumes. Also, one of the longest members of Whitebeard's crew. There's just a lot, there's not really much more to go off for Vista. I just honestly believe that Mihawk doesn't really acknowledge too many people very easily, and the fact that he acknowledged and was willing to clash with Vista as a swordsman and not pull out the little, against Zoro, the little pocket knife, that speaks a lot more volumes. That it's not necessarily a feat, but it's a scenario. It's an example of the respect Mihawk gives to Vista's skill with the blade. So that's why Vista is number 27. Okay, so we're already on to number 26, and I'm sure everyone's already seething. Everybody's a little feeling a little spicy. Guys, you had a couple of habanero tacos or something like that. You're seeing the red, but trust me, you're not seeing that red quite yet, because we have a lot more characters to go through with the explanations that you guys, yes you, will not like. But it's my list, go make your own if you're unhappy. So, moving on to number 26, we have Captain Eustis Kid. Now, why is Kid so low on the list? Well, honestly, he's not exactly in a spot I really wanted to see him in either. I'd love to see him break the top 20. I like Kid. But at the end of the day, Law is the reason Big Mom is defeated. Let's be realistic. Law is completely the reason. Kid alone never... I'm not saying Law alone could have won up Big Mom. Not saying that. But Kid's brunt force was just helping Law along. It was like an assist. He didn't score the goals. He assisted the goals. That's just the way it works. Most of the fan base knows it and sees it. I'm sure some Kid fanboys are going to be unhappy with this. But honestly, Kid, for all the things we know about him, for the fact that he had the highest bounty, from the fact that he's supposed to have Conqueror's Haki, from the fact of this, that, and the other thing, realistically, just like Killer, part of the reason he's on this list is simply because he's part of the Rooftop Gang. So if you're going to put 5 supernovas on the list, Kid's got to go on it. I think it's still a fair position for Kid. And I'm not necessarily saying, once again, as I said at the beginning of the video, saying that basically this means that Kid can defeat Vista, Crocodile, Jozu, that, etc., and that all the characters above spot 26 where Kid is at can defeat Kid is a little bit, I don't think that's exactly set in stone or black and white either. I don't think anybody's top 30 is set that way. It's almost impossible to do that, right? A tier list would work far better where you put certain people in, all right, this class, sort of idea, but that's not what we're doing today. Honestly, Kid has been sort of unimpressive the entirety of the 1.0 arc. Has been unimpressive basically for the entire story, and other than a couple of, shown us some great feats, but been outclassed by a lot of other feats from a lot of other characters. So, Kid stays at number 26, don't really have much more to say about Eustis. Alright, so number 25 is probably one of the more little known for feat characters, but it's Sabo. Number 25 is going to be Sabo. I would only rank Sabo this high because of the Marimara no Mi, and it's true. The Marimara no Mi, of course, plus the experience now that Sabo, I'm sure, is slowly been gaining. We don't know, of course, what happened to Sabo. By the looks of Makino's bar and Makino's reaction to the news, I believe that they have reported that Sabo was killed. Sabo's definitely not dead, but I believe the newspapers likely reported his death or his abduction in some way. I don't know if Makino would cry that much because we never saw that sort of reaction with Ace and stuff. So I'm not 100% sure the reaction warrants just a capture. I believe the news, of course, is falsely reporting that Sabo was killed. Of course, Sabo is still alive. Oda would not kill off Sabo off screen. And I believe that Sabo's skill with the Dragon Claw and all the abilities, plus adding to the fact the Marimara no Mi, which is a very powerful devil fruit in its own right for destructive capabilities, having Sabo with a Logia fruit being a member of the Revolutionary Army and stuff like that, it is very hard to rank Sabo. This is another character, like here in the bottom, it's very difficult to rank some of these characters. Similar to Crocodile, Vista, is in the fact that we don't have enough real information, but leaving them off the top 30 feels almost wrong, like incorrect. You know they clearly are in the top 30. It's just really hard to rank them based on what little information we have. So I feel like right now that is the way. I'm sure this list will change when we learn more about Shanks' crew, the Revolutionary Army, what the Gorosei can do. When we meet Green Bull, there's a big thing. There's just a lot of Blackbeard's crew, right? Like there's just so many characters that we know we're told that are strong, but we have no reference to how strong. So Sabo here sits at 25, which I feel like is a solid place for him. Alright, so we're still going up in the world, and at number 24, we are bringing back the puppy kicker herself, Boa Hancock, at number 24. Now, the reason we're bringing Boa in is because, in all honesty, probably, if you don't count Mihawk, likely the strongest of the warlords, both past and present. Quite literally, pretty close, if not definitely in the top 3. Boa has to be in that discussion at the very least. Boa, of course, has all 3 forms of haki. She's got Conqueror's haki. She is, and her Devil Fruit ability is kind of broken. Kind of broken in a lot of respects. Similar to how Law's Fruit is relatively broken. This is a very broken Devil Fruit. Now, do I think that Boa can contend with the top? No, I really don't think so. There are people that put Boa much higher than this. And personally speaking, I don't really care for Boa. Of course, anybody who kicks a puppy, you're sort of on my last nerve. But regardless of personality and character-wise, Boa's abilities cannot be disputed. She is definitely very powerful, very versed. That's the other thing. Just because someone like Kid, for example, being so low on the list, he has not exhibited great usage of Conqueror's haki. Granted, Luffy is still learning about that as well, but Boa definitely has much more mastery over haki than a lot of other characters on the list. Plus, she exhibits, of course, Conqueror's haki, the big thing. I believe that almost all the Conquerors are on my list. I don't think there's anybody without. I don't think I left anybody with Conquerors off the list. I think I left one. One character is off the list. But other than that, definitely have to have Boa on this list. 24 felt like a good spot. She could go up depending on if we saw more, or I suppose if we saw more from the characters that are preceding her, or, or exceeding her. But yeah, I think Boa speaks for herself with her broken Devil Fruit ability and the mastery of all 3 forms of haki. If you don't want to call it mastery, it's definitely advanced. She was much superior in haki than a lot of characters we knew by the time of Marineford. I'm assuming she only got better as the time skip went on. So, that's Boa. Spot 24. Now, number 23. All right, now we're getting into some bigger guns. We're almost breaking into the top 20, and this one is going to be controversial as well. But until I see more, I can't rank him higher, and that is Shiryu of the Rain. Now, the reason Shiryu, hold your gunfire for a moment. The reason Shiryu is this low on the list, I know a lot of people rank him higher, but once again, I don't know enough about him. I know that Magellan kicks his ass. That's what I've been told. I've been told that Magellan is stronger than Shiryu, and that's about it. That's all I know. And now he's got an invisible Devil Fruit, but with all the characters post on the list after this, they all have high-level observation haki. So the invisible fruit, while deadly to most people, is not going to affect people like Katakuri. It's not going to affect the Admirals. It's not going to affect the Yonko, who have such high level of observation haki. The invisible fruit is going to matter diddly squat, in all honesty. The invisible fruit, as far as a 1v1 competition against undistracted opponents, Shiryu will make an excellent assassin. He'll make a very good flampe sort of way of winning fights. But and that's not to say, of course, Shiryu is much stronger than that. I'm just poking fun. But at the end of the day, I don't know enough about Shiryu. Apparently, he's a swordsman. A lot of people are hyping him up like crazy. But once again, like the rest of the Blackbeard pirates, other than Blackbeard himself and Jesus Burgess, we know very little about the escapees from Impel Down. We have very little information on them. We have very little information on how powerful they are. We can only assume from a narrative perspective that going into this, they are going to be strong and problematic. But as far as, that's just from a narrative perspective, is the only reason for me to believe the Blackbeard pirates are any real threat at this point. So, yeah, Shiryu is going to remain at number 23 until I see otherwise for anybody else to actually lose to him. Number 22 is one of my favorite characters. First Son of the Sea, Knight of the Sea, Jinbei. Jinbei the Warlord himself. He is by far one of the best characters, straight up. But that's not what we're doing here. We're doing straight power scaling. So a little bit of bias, just like with Crocodile here, but I firmly believe in Jinbei's capabilities. Jinbei is a guy who was taking hits from Akainu. Okay? Strongest Admiral, killed Ace one shot. Bar none, strongest Admiral, right? There's just no debate for that. I mean, you could argue Sengoku, Fleet Admiral. You can argue Garp, which I do, Vice Admiral. But out of all the admirals we have seen past and present, right now, Akainu is clearly the strongest. He has been told to us to have the most, as far as devastating, destructive power, he's got the strongest devil fruit. As far as destructive singular power goes. Jinbei took these hits. He actually managed, and he's, once again, we're not even talking about him in the water. Let's remember that this is a man whose convictions stopped a Yonko's devil fruit. Big Mom could not touch him. Remember that. Also, managed to actually deflect, and of course it was over the ocean and stuff, but once again, advantage Jinbei. Jinbei is fighting off Yonko. He's holding them off. Is he winning? No, not at all. That's why he's so low on the list. I don't believe he could beat one of the Yonko straight up. I don't believe he could probably beat one of the Admirals straight up. But the fact of the matter is, Sanji is going to lose his spot when it comes to the Monster Trio. Jinbei has exhibited the fact he defeated Who's Who straight up. Yes, of course he took some damage, but I could argue that Who's Who's likely the strongest of the Topiropo. And he managed to defeat him pretty handily. He's managing to hold off, once again, he held off so many people and stuff. It's just Jinbei's capabilities outside the water alone with his Fishman Karate and all the other feats we know about him. Fighting toe-to-toe with Ace for days, pre-time skip and all this stuff. Managing to hold off Akainu for even a second. All these things that we've seen from Jinbei, we know he has the capability. And if you put him in a goddamn ocean, enough said. Enough said as far as I'm concerned. It can't be denied that that is a situational thing. But, I mean, put Crocodile in a desert. How high do you rank him now? People who don't even have Crocodile on their list. Put Crocodile in Alabasta against all these people. Now what do you rank? Is Crocodile on the top 30? Is he still not? The environment, and as far as I'm concerned, will matter for, of course, a 1v1 fight. But even assuming that Jinbei is not in the water, I still see him. I mean, he's beating up Toby Robo for fun. So, I mean, and they're apparently Supernova class or above. So, maybe I've got a little bit of bias. He is one of my favorite characters. But I feel like we have not yet seen Jinbei go fully all out. You could argue the Who's Who's fight is the first time we've actually seen Jinbei try all out. And once again, he was on land. How strong is this man if he fights on a ship, which, once again, they're pirates, when they actually have a battle on the ship like he did against Big Mom? How strong will he be? Can he fight Yonko commanders? I think he can. Hell, I think he could actually give Queen or Jack a run for their money in this arc had that been the setup. There was, of course, other characters that needed to fight those commanders, but I wouldn't have held my breath if Jinbei had defeated Jack or Queen 1v1. And now on to number 21 that I've stopped fanboying about Jinbei, and I'm sure you guys are loving this right now. None of you are seeing red. None of you are typing away super fast, breaking your mother's keyboard, you know, and trying to tell me what a loser I am, and to cope, and to, what's all that other new slang you kids use? I don't know. Anyways, moving on to number 21 is one I think we can all agree on definitely belongs in the top 30. It's Magellan. And honestly, I'll tell you why Magellan's here. He's stronger than Shiryu. We were told that. I believe that. Not much else to say. Would have killed the entire Blackbeard crew, because Blackbeard's an idiot. Honestly, Magellan should be above Blackbeard, because I still believe that straight up Magellan would kill Blackbeard. Honestly, when we get to Blackbeard, who is on this list, I'm going to say I hate placing him where I placed him. I really do, because honestly, we'll talk about it. But the point of the matter is that Magellan straight up killed Blackbeard, straight up killed Luffy, literally killed the main villain and the main literally killed the main antagonist and the main protagonist, and didn't really try. Magellan literally could have ended that story pre-time skip. Circumstances is the reason that did not happen. So Magellan is clearly still on the list. Once again, I'm going to go under the assumption that everybody got stronger, not weaker over the time skip. You could argue that the old guard are getting a little older. Maybe they're a little weaker than pre-time skip. But at the end of the day, almost all the characters, all the younger characters, definitely got stronger, not weaker, since time skip. Okay? So Magellan only got stronger, as far as I'm concerned. We're told Magellan was stronger than Shiryu. So if Shiryu's on the list, I mean, it stands to reason that Magellan's on the list. And, of course, at least a spot above Shiryu. So and in this particular instance, 2 spots above, because I still think that a strong contender would be Jinbei versus Shiryu is a high diff fight for both of them. So, and I just put Jinbei 1 over because I like him better. But here we have Magellan, the poison fruit, the toxic fruit, whatever. I forget exactly its translation. The venom, I think it's called. But yeah, it's a dangerous devil fruit. It's absolutely destructive power, and its ability to just infect everything. It's just, I mean, we saw what he was capable of in Impel Down, and he's still alive. He's still kicking. I see no reason to believe that he's still not in the top, in the top 30. There's no reason for me to believe that he could not defeat even some of the characters above him on this list. Once again, this is why a top 30 is so difficult. There's no reason for me to believe that he could not go toe-to-toe with some first mates, with some Whitebeard commanders. There's no reason for me to believe that he can't fight some warlords. Maybe he loses, maybe he doesn't, but I would argue they're all high diff fights. Alright, so we're finally breaking into the top 20, and I think we will see less arguments. Most of the flames and the fire have probably gone out now that we're past, the 30s. The 30 to 20 spots are usually the most diverse, I notice, across a lot of people's lists, and it also depends on who you count. Once again, as I said, I'm not counting a number of characters, even if they are alive, for just reasons that there's no way to really rank them. I just don't know how. So, but yeah, our 20th spot is going to go to the future Straw Hat Yamato. I think it goes without saying that Yamato has a very strong devil fruit, from what we've seen. An ice-powered foxy dog thingy mabob, a Kuryu or something like that. Some ancient mythical beast. So a mythical zone devil fruit, one that Kaido himself coveted. Plus Kaido's daughter. Plus dem titties, plus side boob gang for the win with that one. But also all 3 types of hockey. Has Conqueror's hockey, managed to hold off Kaido, though getting beaten down. Once again, the same feat that Jinbei exhibited. Jinbei was not going to be able to beat some of these characters that he managed to hold off, but it's still a feat nonetheless that you do not die in one shot either. So Yamato holding off her old man, definitely a feat within itself. Having Conqueror's hockey clashes, I mean, what more can be said? Yamato honestly could be probably higher on this list if we see more from her. When we see her win in a straight up fight. Because we don't know the extent of the damage she relatively did to Kaido. Going up against Kaido is definitely going to be, there's going to be a lot of debates and arguments over how that goes down. What do you count as damage? What do you not, for example? But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is Yamato managed to hold down Kaido for more than 5 seconds. It was longer than that. So, got to give her her feats. Conquers hockey once again. She'll only grow from here, especially when she leaves with Luffy. So, yeah, Yamato is breaking into the top 20. And now for number 19, we get everyone's favorite blind Admiral, Fujitora. Now, some people are definitely not going to like the placement of Fujitora on this list, but I've got a couple of reasons for that. Number 1, Fujitora is definitely, in my opinion, other than Green Bull, probably the weakest Admiral. Yes, his Devil Fruit is broken, but realistically speaking, was fighting off against the Law Dofi thing really leads me to believe that Fuji, blinding himself didn't necessarily make him weaker, but I haven't seen much other than the fact that he's dropping meteors. And if you have Kenpachi level people like Zoro slicing meteors for fun, what else you got? Realistically, yes, is he a swordsman? Yes, is he powerful? Yes, is he Admiral level? Absolutely. However, I have seen not enough to convince me that Fuji, outside, if the meteors don't bother you, what else does he have in his arsenal? Because everyone else, I believe, on this list has, if they can stop the meteors, then then it's 1v1, it's combat-wise. And regardless how blind is affecting him or not, I believe that the characters above him on this list could definitely, without, with the meteors not being an issue, I think Fuji would at least high diff at the very least. I don't really know what to say. I like Fujitora, but I really feel weird ranking him any higher. In fact, Yamato would probably give Fujitora a run for their money. Once again, this top 30 list, just got to keep reiterating, because I know people are going to skip around in the video. I have to keep reiterating the fact that a lot of these places have switched. This is probably my 11th, 12th revision of this list, with simple spot changes of 21 and 22 and 18 and 17 and stuff like that, right? And that is likely to change by the time I'm done editing this video as well. I feel like you could sort of chunk it together as like these 5 high diff, these 5 high diff, 20 to 25 would be a good match, 26 to 30 would be a good match, you could sort of almost chunk it away in blocks or tiers in a sense, because the position could change easily. I'm not saying that Yamato would lose to Fujitora every time. I'm not saying that Fujitora would win against Yamato every time. It's just the position on the list I ended up deciding on. So yeah, but honestly, Fuji didn't impress me enough in Dressrosa for me to put him much higher. So, you guys liking my reasoning so far? I'm sure you're absolutely loathing it, but it's my list. So, number 18, we have Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. The reason Big Mom has been defeated. So, Law, honestly, would likely have gone below Yamato and Fujitora had he not defeated Big Mom. The reason being, Law has one thing, and you could argue that it's the same thing I argued against Fujitora, and that is why Law is so low on the list. Outside the Devil Fruit, he's not as strong as most of the other characters. You take away Law's Devil Fruit, not take it away necessarily, but that is his thing. And yes, is it very versatile? Is it extremely deadly? Hell, it defeated Big Mom. It's the reason Big Mom has been defeated officially as this point in Wano. So I'm not going to take that away from him. But that is what Law excels at. Law excels at Devil Fruit, similar to Crocodile. As far as hockey goes and swordsmanship goes, we know very little, and the fact of the matter is, even if we don't know, I argue that all the characters after him would beat him in a straight-up fist fight, sword fight, regardless what you want, hockey clash, all that stuff. So, yes, is the Abi Abi no Mi OP? Of course it is. But in the same vein, if you manage to fight around it, like Big Mom or Kaido, and we saw the limitations of that as Law, outside of an awakened ability, which did tax him hugely, we know that he stated himself on the rooftop, being part of the rooftop gang himself, he was not able to actually room and get rid of Kaido and Big Mom. Their hockey managed to prevent the abilities of the Devil Fruit in its entirety. A telekinetic Devil Fruit ability like Room did not affect Big Mom and Kaido because their hockey was too great. So that's what was told to us. We don't know the limitations of this, but it stands to reason that I would argue that Law would not be able to, outside of his awakened form, would struggle against most of the other characters as well. And so the Appi Appi no Mi has now shown its limitations with its wielder. And now we officially get to some of my favorite characters in spots 17, 16, and 15. And that is referred to as the Old Guard of One Piece. These are the remaining living members of the Old Guard that we have met in the story, that we have seen, that we've interacted with. And the fact of the matter is that I'm not convinced that they belong in this spot either. This is where things get a little tricky. Because there is reason to believe that some of these characters could top all the first mates of Yonko crews. That they could still kick Luffy's ass. It's hard to rank them, and I just felt, at the end of the day, I made a decision. It's a top 30 list. Their ceiling is going to be the middle, the exact middle. So spot 15. I will not put them any higher than spot 15. That's the only way I could do it without some bias and some favoritism, was give them a glass ceiling of spot 15. So if you think that they rank higher, I will not dispute that. It's very difficult to rank them, but let's start. Number 17, Sengoku the Buddha. Sengoku was the former fleet admiral. He's the Buddha. He is incredibly powerful. We know of his strength. If nothing else, what else can you say but the fact that the pirate king in his prime, when he wanted a challenge, he told the Marines to bring Sengoku or Garp. That was it. Those were the names he listed. Nobody else. So if that doesn't tell you exactly what we needed to hear, I don't know what else to tell you. Sengoku also managed to hold down in the most controversial part of One Piece as far as a lot of people are concerned. Would Garp have killed Akainu at Marineford? The answer is obviously yes. But outside of that bias, the fact of the matter is that Sengoku was the one to have to hold him down. And Garp even stated, you better keep a firm grip on me. You better keep me held here. Otherwise, nobody else here going to stop me, sort of idea. So Sengoku has, of course, showcased his strength before. We know his past feats. Once again, like other characters, it's hard to gauge him completely. He definitely was getting older and such, like all the other characters. But the fact of the matter is, Sengoku was probably one of the strongest. He was one of the strongest Marines in his day. Garp was likely the strongest Marine, 20, 30 years ago. Sengoku did not trail behind him very far. So that's just the way I see it. Now number 16 is going to be the Dark King himself, Rayleigh, the mentor character. And in fact, once again, another character that probably, in still in my mind, could break the top 10. I really do believe that. I'm sorry, I know it's a bit of, I don't know what to call it. It's not nostalgia, and I don't think it's bias. I just think that the manga speaks for itself when we see these characters and their feats and how powerful they truly are. And would this be high diff for them to be in these categories? Of course it would. But as I said, I made sure to limit this so that it didn't seem unfair in that regard, and we have to stick Rayleigh at number 16. He is, of course, the first mate of the late Pirate King himself. I would argue that he's no weaker. He's called a king in his own right. He is referred to the Dark King in his own right. A lot of people have assumed that the epithet, the Dark King, is referring to he had likely some of the strongest haki of any pirate. Hence, the Dark King, with the vulcanization, of course. He probably had the strongest armament haki of all pirates during his prime. That is a big fan theory that's been out there. It doesn't go unwarranted. This man, feat-wise alone, fighting off Kizaru and complaining that he couldn't take down Kuma while fighting Kizaru. Even Kizaru is upset and shocked that he's actually considering fighting off an admiral at his age while concerning himself with and being distracted by other things. He also, of course, he showcased us so many feats swimming through the combat and stuff. And once again, this just shows a mastery of haki. This man, he did not become the first mate of the Pirate King through Roger alone. He certainly was a contender for one of the strongest characters in the verse in his prime. And I don't think he got that much weaker. I really don't. Once again, placing these guys in a glass ceiling of spot 15, but it's so much easier to rank them higher. And now, of course, you guys knew who the last of the old guard was. It was going to be Monkey D. Garp, hero of the Marines and the Fist himself. Now, why I ranked Garp above Sengoku and Rayleigh? It's one simple reason. Garp was the one to fight at God Valley. Garp was the one told to us by Sengoku to be the rival of Roger. Roger had 3 main rivals that we know of, true rivals. Rocks, Garp, Whitebeard. Those were his rivals. Those were his actual combative rivals. Now, granted, he did mention Sengoku, you know, in the Odin flashback and such, but Garp was told to us many times to be the one who brought the Pirate King down, the one who did this, the one who did that. Garp is known as the strongest Marine for a reason. He was always known that way. And I believe that in their prime, Garp probably would have high-diffed Rayleigh. I have a feeling that Garp was the strongest Marine, and outside of Whitebeard and Roger, nobody else could have actually beaten him back after Roxas' defeat. The only ones that could have actually defeated Garp would have been Whitebeard or Roger, and literally nobody else. What happens nowadays, who knows, but Garp has stated himself multiple times, like Rayleigh and Sengoku, that getting old sucks, and they're a lot weaker than they once were. But we've seen Garp do massive feats, you know, biffing cannonballs, taking hits, doing what he does best, which is snoring while, you know, beating up his grandchildren. But the fact of the matter is that Garp himself is a monster. And if he truly tried, once again, if any of these three of the old guard truly tried and were putting their life on the line, I wouldn't really want to bet against them, no matter how old they might be. Look at the amount of damage Whitebeard ended up doing. An old, dying Whitebeard. And Garp is not dying. Garp is Whitebeard level without the cancer, without the tuberculosis, without the regardless what you want to say. And look at the devastation Whitebeard did. I'm just arguing the fact that Garp was every bit as strong as Whitebeard back in the day. I think that's almost non-debatable. So why we give so much credence to Whitebeard and not Garp is just beyond me. Garp should be much higher on this list. So should Rayleigh and Sengoku. But I had to give them a glass ceiling because I have a bit of a favoritism for the old guard in a lot of mangas. And I didn't want this list to be overly biased or overly show favoritism. So Garp is here at spot 15 as the rival, as the Marine rival, the only Marine that could have ever rivaled Gold D. Roger. And Garp kills Kaido, by the way. Okay, so now that we've had our discussion about the old guard and all that fun jazz, let's move on to who is in the top 15, in the top strongest in the verse. And we're going to start off this number 14 with King the Wildfire. King is here for the sole purpose that he is a first mate of Kaido's crew. He is very powerful. He is also, other than Shiryu, the weakest first mate of a Yonko crew. Because, in all honesty, I have no reason to believe that any of the other Yonko crews, including the 5th Emperor himself, I have no reason to believe that those first mates are not stronger than King. King is versatile. King has a very strong devil fruit, and his Lunarian ancestry and his race, his ethnicity, I suppose you would say, gives him a high advantage for durability, for weather conditions, for everything we've been told in the Zoro versus King fight. However, a weakened Zoro, after fighting off against 2 Yonko, along with the rest of the rooftop gang, managed to fight against King. Now, granted, of course, King was also battered himself in a sense, so you could call the fight pretty even. But at the end of the day, what happened? Zoro defeated King. So there's no real reason. A lot of people are going to say, well, no, like, what about the Katakuri Luffy thing? The Katakuri Luffy thing. It's a very, very different situation. It is so different. There was no interference. Both members were beaten and bloodied. Zoro after fighting on the roof, and Marco beating the shit out of King. Let's be honest. King and Queen for a good, tossing them around for a while. So you could argue that both of them had a little bit of scuff marks on them. And the fight, as far as I'm aware, had no interference. And no handicaps. So, in this regard, I see no reason. And people are going to argue that King is still above Zoro. And that if they had another match, King could defeat Zoro. I'm sure he could. It was a high diff match, and I'm not arguing that. King is still in the top 15. But I see no reason to put King any higher at this junction. And I see no reason that any of the characters above him could not defeat him. In fact, once again, old guard, looking at the old guard right below him, but is what it is. So, moving on. Now, spot 13 is the winner of the King the Wildfire fight, and that is Ronorola Zoro. Or Zolo, whatever. First mate of the Straw Hats, future world's greatest swordsman, first mate to the Pirate King, going to be known as the King of Hell himself. I'm sure that'll be his epithet. That'll be extremely cool. Zoro is, as far as we know, Zoro kind of died there in Wano lately. He kind of fell off a cliff after meeting the Grim Reaper himself, which was not Brook, from what we now have confirmed. And he hallucinated a Grim Reaper, and now he's dying. Or dead. One of the two. And so of course Zoro's not dead. But anyways, he definitely exhibited so much strength. In fact, before the rooftop gang sort of fell apart, Zoro showed the greater of all the feats out of the 5 supernovas on that roof. He showed greater feats than Luffy. He showed greater feats than Law. He showed greater feats than Kid and Killer. Zoro was the one who did not know he had Conqueror's Haki. He was not aware of it. And I love that theory that King of Lightning brought up about Zoro and Enma and how Conqueror's Haki is being used to such a degree by Zoro. It makes sense. A quick summary of that is simply the fact that it was told to us that Enma absorbs Haki. Not ornament Haki. Not observation Haki. Haki. So Zoro did not need to be aware of his Conqueror's Haki for when he gave more Haki into Enma. If you think of Haki as a mana pool, Enma's just taking it all. Doesn't care whether you know you have it or not. Do you have, like, once again, we have seen subconscious uses of Conqueror's Haki throughout the entirety of One Piece. Enma is drawing on that subconscious usage whether Zoro knows he has it or not. Luffy did not either. In Marineford, Luffy did not know he had Conqueror's Haki. He did not know about Haki when he was using Haki. So it stands to reason that Enma knows what Haki is and is absorbing the fuck ton of it out of Zoro, and that's how Zoro is able to use such advanced Conqueror's Haki, because Enma the Blade is very knowing of how to use damn Haki. So, as another Conqueror, which everyone was arguing for some reason that there was no reason that Zoro would ever have Conqueror's Haki, I sat back before Marineford and I said, well, the Pirate King's first mate, Rayleigh, has Conquerors. Why wouldn't the first mate of Luffy, the future Pirate King? It only made sense to me. Sanji having it is a bit of a fan theory that's going way out there to left field, but Zoro having it was almost confirmed, was almost like expected for years, for almost a decade. And the fact that he's exhibited it now just shows how powerful he is. He has now officially defeated a commander, a first-tier commander of a Yonko crew. He fought against 2 Yonko successfully, managed to cut Kaido, only the second man to ever truly scar Kaido, according to Kaido himself. There's so much I could keep ranting about Zoro, but at the end of the day, Zoro deserves spot number 13. There's just no other way to see it. That old, what does Sanji call him? Broccoli head? He deserves all the accolades and the spot he's been given. 100%. Now, number 12 on the list, above both King and Zoro, is another first mate. You see what's happening here? You see what's happening? We sort of are listing the relative first mates in order as far as strength goes, and it's got to be Katakuri. I still believe, I know it's hard to say, I would love to see a fight between Zoro and Katakuri, but I see it as a very high diff fight regardless which way it goes. I just feel that Katakuri, where Zoro is unknowingly using Conqueror's Haki and is down to the wire, bleeding and almost dead by the time the end of the King fight happens, Katakuri has much more, and the thing about Katakuri is that Katakuri, of course, has Devil Fruit Mastery, has some of the best observation Haki we've seen, once again knowingly possesses Conquerors and Armament Haki, and a very asterisk W for for Luffy in that fight. You know it, I know it, we all know it. That's one of those Hall of Fame records that has the little asterisk next to it. For a number of reasons. At this point, is Luffy stronger than Katakuri? Yes. But at the time, no. Katakuri was clearly the stronger person than Luffy. And even after the Katakuri-Luffy fight, I would have put Katakuri over Luffy. Most people did. Most people would. Because that fight was less about muscle and power and more about the meaning behind them. But regardless about getting in the philosophy of that fight, Katakuri still, to this day, I think holds up as one of the strongest opponents Luffy has faced. Clearly far superior to Dofi in every way. And from what we've now seen of King the Wildfire, there's no question in my mind Katakuri would defeat King. And I'm not confident that Zoro yet, maybe after this arc, would be able to defeat Katakuri. But as the strongest member of the Big Mom Pirates, I would argue that Katakuri is stronger than every member of the Beast Pirates. And that includes King. So, the placement here I think is fair. The 12th spot, hitting that top 12. He could honestly maybe be a little higher. There's no reason for me to believe he handicapped himself in that Luffy fight, and he was dog-walking Luffy the entire time. And circumstances with Flampe and there was a lot of reasons as to why Katakuri was in the situation he was in with Luffy. So, and once again, he laid on his back on purpose. So, once again, it wasn't a true W, and I believe that Katakuri could still give Luffy a run for his money, even if Luffy is currently stronger. And now that we've almost broken in completely to the top 10, I just want to reiterate once again, I am not a power scaler. I am not a power scaler, and this is not your list. It's my list. It does include favoritism. It does include bias. If you want to have a full discussion on this without getting too trigger happy, then I am more than willing to discuss why you think X character belongs a couple spots above, why they can defeat X character can defeat Y character. Sure, fine, dandy. As I said before, I believe, for example, in the last group of characters we've done, Katakuri, Zoro, King, those three might be interchangeable. King might be able to defeat Katakuri. I don't see it necessarily, but Zoro might be able to defeat Katakuri. There's, and Katakuri might lose to both of them. There is a little bit of a bracket. There's a little bit of a gray area when I ranked everyone. So just keep that in mind as we go forward once again. I feel like I have to keep saying that. But anyways, moving on to number 11, right before we break into the top 10, it is Marco the Phoenix. Marco the Phoenix. Now, there is a clear reason for this. Before, I would have put Marco probably somewhere around, just around King level or some such. But then I realized that Marco managed to hold off and actually do damage and basically won up. Marco kicked the shit out of, let's call a spade, kicked the shit out of King and Queen by himself, fighting the two strongest of the Beast Pirates best, and fought against both of them for a number of minutes, hours. I don't know. I don't know really the time frame. It's a little weird with the One Piece world with that. But clearly held them off and did damage for a good amount of time against both of them. Like, regardless what you think of Katakuri, Zoro, and King and stuff being where they are on the list, fact of the matter is, Marco is holding back two of them. You know, you can argue Queen's not a first mate and blah, 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 but I'm just like, alright, still a Yonko commander, still the second strongest on the Kaido crew, still a Billion-Berry Bounty member, and Marco is holding back two Billion-Berry Bounty commanders. And did it for a solid length. Not just a clash, for a solid length. In all honesty, I have no reason to believe that Marco couldn't kick the shit out of King. Like, without Queen's interference, Marco probably would have defeated King. And I'm not even thinking it would have been high diff, mid diff. Not low diff or no diff or anything, but I see no reason to believe that Marco would not have defeated King 10 out of 10 times 1v1. And given that, the ease in which I believe that would have been possible, even mid-diff, where Zoro struggled so highly against King, there's no reason for me to believe that Marco is still not stronger than Zoro. And when it comes to Marco and Katakuri, once again, this is the Whitebeard crew. This is Marco the Phoenix. Look no further than the fact that after Marineford, they said, remember what the Gorosei said, the ones who know everything that's going on in the world. They stated one of the other Yonkos or Marco the Phoenix. Marco was listed alongside of the Yonko as one of the people to take down Teach. Granted that he lost. We don't know the circumstances. But clearly he's okay. I don't see any eyes missing or limbs missing. We don't really know the status of the other ones. But we don't know what advantage. We have no idea what happened in the payback war. However, the fact of the matter is that Marco was toted on that level, and I see no reason to dispute that. An older, I believe Marco is actually old. He might not be older, but either way, he's around that age, the same age as Queen and King mostly, within that decade, I believe. And he held them both back substantially and did damage to them for a solid amount of time, while all the other characters got their shit together. There's no... It's Marco! That's all I'm going to say. Number 10 on the list. We're finally breaking into the top 10 of the strongest One Piece characters, according to me, Griever. Which, once again, they're just opinions. Don't take them like the damn gospel. It's Kizaru. It's Pothead Admiral himself. There's a lot of reasons as to why, but put it simply, he decimated in Marineford. He did insanely well. Now, granted, Marco versus Kizaru 2.0 with none of the Sea Stone handcuff and a bunch of other distractions. I'm not exactly 100% sure. That's why Marco is so close to the Kizaru level. Once again, interchangeable right there, because I don't necessarily believe that Kizaru would win 10 out of 10 times against Marco. And I think that's a high diff fight on both sides without interruption next time. You know what I mean? But Kizaru is definitely one of the strongest characters we've seen in the series. He just breaks the top 10. And for another reason is that Rayleigh struggled. Now, once again, maybe Rayleigh could have beaten Kizaru. Maybe Kizaru would have beaten Rayleigh. I have no idea. Nobody really knows. Either way, it would have been a high diff fight for an old Rayleigh. Prime Rayleigh, no question. But old Rayleigh versus Kizaru Prime, it's a high diff fight. It's a high diff fight either way. And Kizaru has shown his versatile abilities, the light fruit. Honestly, why did I even explain anything else? The light fruit. Enough said. Now I know what you all are thinking. You're thinking, light fruit? Number 10? Enough said? Well, who else? Who could threaten the dude with the light fruit? And I can think of one man. The spot number 9 gives us is Don't Make a Move, Kizaru. Ooh, Bendo Beckman. That is who is spot number 9. And yes, there's everyone who's going to say all the fucking naysayers. Jesus Christ. People are voting up all these other characters like Green Bull and Kong they have no idea what the fuck they can do or how strong they are. They could be weak as shit for all we know. And I'm being told that, oh, well, Ben Beckman is clearly not that strong because even after he told Kizaru not to move, he went ahead and did a move anyways. He wasn't scared of Ben Beckman. Okay, why'd he put up his hands in the first place then? Look, at the end of the day, I put Shiryu on this list for the sole purpose that we were told he's about as strong as Magellan, and Magellan deserves to be on the list. Shiryu has shown me no reason to believe that he's on this list. The reason Shiryu is on the list is for the sole purpose that narrative. Narratively, after Wano, we're going to have to fight the Blackbeard pirates at some point, and I don't believe that the Straw Hats are just going to walk all over them. They're going to need to be strong, if not stronger than some of the Yonko commanders we've faced, right? On par. So, narratively is the only reason for us to even think that Shiryu is stronger than anybody. Same with Blackbeard, in all honesty. What did Blackbeard actually do when you think about it? We'll get to that in a little bit. Blackbeard's coming up soon. But, fact of the matter is, Ben Beckman is the first mate of the Red Hair Pirates. Arguably, the strongest Yonko crew. And once again, narratively speaking, Blackbeard and Shanks' crew have to be at least as strong or stronger than the Big Mom and Kaido crew, because here's this crazy thing called storytelling, where you do not introduce, you know how in Dragon Ball Z, let's use Dragon Ball Z as a very good example because I love using that. You don't have Goku fight against Perfect Cell and Majin Buu and then go fight against Frieza from Namek. You know why? Because it's a wash. Because it makes no sense. You have to up the ante. The enemies, the villains get stronger, not weaker. They constantly get stronger because our main cast is getting stronger. So the villains in future arcs need to be stronger. So narratively speaking, Shanks and Blackbeard's crew need to be stronger from a narrative perspective. And the fact of the matter is, Shanks has the smallest crew. And he threatened all of Marineford with 10 guys. 10 guys. Shanks shows up with a crew of less than a dozen dudes and says, all right, all the warlords, all 47 crews of the Whitebeard pirates, Blackbeard pirates who think you're something, all the Marines, everybody sit down. What happened? The guy who is second in command of a crew of 10 people that gets to say that and the entire world listens is not weaker than Kizaru. I'm sorry. He's, in all honesty, we could switch around a couple of these characters once again because there's a lot of arguments back and forth. I'm going to have to redo this list right after we're done editing. But at the end of the day, Ben Beckman is got to be number 9 on the list. In fact, he's probably stronger than that. But we don't know for certain. That's why I hold back a little bit, because this is bordering on the whole thing that I said at the beginning of the video, where it's almost impossible to judge characters with very little to no feats that we don't even know. Like Green Bull, we don't even see his face yet. I don't even know what the man looks like. So, it's hard to judge them. So Ben Beckman can't be any higher on the list. But, I don't know. He just might be. He might be. The more we learn about him, probably the more impressive he is going to seem. Now, number 8 on the list might shock some people. Some people might, for one reason or another. Some people might think it's too high. Some people might think it's too low. And here we have the MC Monkey D, Luffy, coming in at a strong number 8, breaking into that top 10. Now, why is he number 8? Well, because here's the thing. Just like with the Katakuri fight preceding it, the Kaido fight is not Luffy 1v1ing Kaido. I think we can all assume that Kaido is going to lose this fight. Luffy is officially going to defeat Kaido. But in the same sense that Law defeated Big Mom, it's not a 1v1. It wasn't straight up. There has been multiple damage from multiple characters on Kaido. Kaido has fought against about 20 damn people consistently, no break, no stop. Multiple times against Luffy at this point. No breaks, no recovery, no eating meat. Drinking some sake, sure, but that's it. Fighting against multiple Conqueror's Hockeys. Multiple characters with Devil Fruit abilities. Multiple attacks, multiple swords, multiple everything. So the fact of the matter is that Luffy is going to be impressive. Luffy is definitely going to get stronger after finally defeating Kaido at the end of Wano. But I don't believe that Luffy is necessarily, just like at the end of Whole Cake, Luffy was never stronger than Katakuri by the end of that arc. And he is maybe stronger than him now. I clearly have him higher on my list. But is Luffy truly stronger than Kaido if he defeats him? Redo that match. 100% health on both parties. 1v1, no interruptions. I would bet on Kaido again. I would not bet on Luffy. So right now, I'm going to say that Luffy is in the conversation. He's here. He's not a Yonko yet. Just like people said, it was too soon for him to get the title of 5th Emperor. And it was. And it still is. But he has progressed and improved to a point that he might not be Yonko level yet. But he's in the conversation on who will be Yonko level. And you could argue maybe here at the end he is Yonko level. He's just at the bottom of the Yonko tier. He just managed to get himself into that bracket, into that tier, into the conversation. And that's why he's got to be at the bottom, but he's not down and out, and he's only going to improve on this list. He's only going to go up, so I don't feel bad about lowballing him potentially for spot 8, because he's only going to go up as the series progresses. Alright, now who could possibly be above our MC? We have 7 spots. 7 spots left to go. And at number 7, we're going to talk about the one that, honestly, the only reason I'm putting here is because everyone would call me, like uncreditable, or there's a lot of things. Literally, this spot for this particular character is influenced by the community, Redditors, Power Scalers, and basically all of you. Everybody. Because if I put this guy where I honestly believed he was, everyone would say that I have zero credibility and no one would ever listen to a goddamn word I had to say, even if I was 100% correct for the next 5 years. That all being said, it's Teach. Blackbeard at number 7. And I hate to put him here. I do. Because here is what, and at any point in the comment section, you correct me what part of this statement is false. Blackbeard, I guess, I'll try to go in chronological events, I might get them messed up. At some point, injured Shanks. And Shanks said it was straight up. Okay, we don't know at what age and how powerful either person was at the time. Then we know he backstabbed a crewmate to steal a devil fruit. Okay. Then he fought against Ace off-screen and managed to defeat Ace. We don't know if it was mid-diff, high-diff, etc. We can assume it's somewhere, probably a mid-diff fight by the looks of how the battle was going, though Ace was definitely struggling, so I would say probably mid-diff fight. I don't think it was necessarily low-diff, but, I mean, once again, it was off-screen, so nobody knows. So now so far we have only 2 real feats off-screen, and we don't know the details about them. That's what we have so far, correct? Then he shows up at Impel Down, like he owns the place. Magellan kills him, straight up. Saved by Shiryu of the Rain is the only reason Blackbeard is not dead. Then he proceeds to go to Marineford, where he manages to go his entire crew. He gets his ass kicked by Sengoku. Then he decides to take a Whitebeard who is missing half a head and half his brain and taking 2 shits. Whitebeard is dead man walking at this point. Cancerous tuberculosis dying dead Whitebeard who has been fighting off against Akainu, the strongest admiral. Fighting off against all these people. And Blackbeard goes his entire crew against him after Whitebeard kicked his ass. And manages to actually finally deliver the killing blow, which we know what those stats were. He stole Whitebeard's devil fruit after this. If you want to count Blackbeard shooting Whitebeard after he was already shot 100 times, because he was the 101st bullet killed Whitebeard, You count that as a feat, I fucking don't. But regardless, he stole Whitebeard's fruit. So now he's got 2 extremely powerful devil fruits. Yes. And then he claims that he's going to use them, he's going to sink Marineford, and he's going to fight everybody. It's his era. Shanks shows up and says no. And Blackbeard pussies out and runs away from Shanks. And then, after that, he manages to fight and capture Julie Ribani, whatever. He hears Akainu's coming, and he pussies out again. And then he went and overtook the Pirate Paradise Island that, for all we know, was completely uninhabited at the time. We don't even know who the fuck was living there. We don't even know if anybody was living there. And now we're up to today's date. That is what Blackbeard has so far done in the entirety of One Piece. So, where do I rank a guy like this? Like, I'm legitimately asking. I don't dislike or like Blackbeard. I think he's going to be an interesting villain, and the philosophy battle between him and Luffy near the end of the story and stuff will be really good. But narratively is the only reason this guy has any business being in the top 10. Sure, he's got the Gura Gura no Mi now, and the Yomi Yomi no Mi. He's the only person with 2 devil fruits. You know who didn't have a devil fruit? The Pirate King. You know who didn't have a devil fruit and still doesn't? Shanks. Just saying. Like, I'm not arguing the devastation that Blackbeard, I'm sure, can cause with these fruits. And I'm sure over the 2 years, he's only gotten better usage out of the Yomi Yomi no Mi and certainly the Gura Gura no Mi. However, outside of his devil fruit abilities, he's literally only shown that he gets his shit kicked and he's an idiot. He's smart in some ways, he's an opportunist. That's what makes Blackbeard dangerous. He plays the long game. Sometimes he jumps the gun, Magellan, and stuff like that. Sometimes he jumps the gun, Marineford. Shanks shows up and says no. But he's an opportunist, and he's a fantastic opportunist, and I don't think he's a bad villain. But power scaling wise, all I've seen this guy do is getting beaten and bloody. I have not seen him win a straight up fight on screen. Granted, we haven't seen that from a lot of characters. Actually, I don't think we've seen that from a single one of the Yonkos. And we trust their power. I'm just arguing the fact that it's almost narratively crucial that Blackbeard is powerful for Luffy to have that fight. But in all honesty, all Blackbeard has done throughout the series is kind of lose. Opportunity presents itself and he steals a devil fruit or 2, stabs one crewmate in the back and kills a guy dying of cancer. But outside of those and taking their power, which was not his, it's just, for me personally, power scaling wise, it's hard to rank when you see a dude who runs away from a solid fight and only wins through crime of opportunity. So for right now, I put Blackbeard here. This is the one exception to the rule that this is my list, my channel, go fuck yourself. This is the one spot I'm going to give the community, but I'm not ranking him any higher. I don't even like ranking him here. Because in all honesty, we've seen him fight against strong opponents and he loses. And we've never seen him win a fight. So that's all I can say for right now about Blackbeard. I know people love him, and as a character, as a villain, he's fine. But power scaling wise, can you honestly tell me that he was going to do any real damage to Sengoku when he was taking shockwaves? If Whitebeard was at full health, even dying of cancer, had Blackbeard shown up at the beginning of Marineford, you think Blackbeard would have beaten Whitebeard? Really? Why did he run away from Akainu if he's so fucking strong? With the Julie Ronnie capture. Why did he run away from Shanks? He's running away. Might be the smart play. course it's a smart play, because he's weaker than these people. He's running away from people who are stronger than him. Which, I mean, that's a fight or flight, that's a survival instinct. Sure, give him survival instinct, maxed out Skyrim stats, 100 legendary. But, as far as power scaling wise, he hasn't really impressed me yet. Now, moving on to some other characters, and they'll be a little shorter. Number 6 is going to be Aokiji. It's going to be Kuzan himself. The reason I put him here is because I'm sure you guys can guess that there's somebody else that's sort of missing from this power scaling right now. And even though you guys know that I don't like him that much, but once again, from a villain standpoint and from a character and from power alone, he's strong. We've talked about him earlier. And Aokiji fought for 10 days against this man. That's a feat in itself. And similar to how Shanks said, sit down to Blackbeard, and it worked, Aokiji did the same thing to Doflamingo. Now, granted, some of you are going to bitch that Dofi's not on this list, and I gave you Blackbeard in spot 7. You had one freebie, one mulligan, sorry. It was either Blackbeard's in the top 10 or Dofi goes on the list. You had one or the other, and I picked the Blackbeard one. So, fact of the matter is, Aokiji told Dofi, which everybody seems to think is so powerful, and is really not, sit down. And Dofi fucking listened. So, we know he's Warlord level. We know he's an Admiral. We know he's at least as strong as Kizaru and Akainu. So he's definitely in the top 10 because Kizaru's in the top 10, right? Strongest Admirals, easy. I still think Aokiji would give Luffy a run for his money. This is a man who fought against Akainu for 10 straight days, and we don't even know how the fight went. Once again, another off-screen fight. We just know it was 10 days, and we know that both of them took some heavy hits. And in the end, Akainu managed to squeak out a win. But after 10 days, that's a feat in itself. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter who walks away from that. It's still a feat, right? So, Aokiji to me, who is now working with Blackbeard and such, I feel like Aokiji, of course, everyone has their theories, working for Sword, etc., etc. That's all irrelevant to me. My biggest thing here is that the Chill Fruit and his abilities right now, I really feel that he is a contender to still be able to defeat most of the other people on this list. Now, granted, I think it's high diff. I'm not saying that Luffy couldn't beat him, or Blackbeard couldn't beat him, or even Marco or Ben Beckman could not beat Aokiji. I'm just saying that right now, I feel like out of the Admirals, out of all the Marines, he's second only to one right now. Given the glass ceiling to, of course, the Old Guard, but yeah, he's just that powerful. I don't think we've ever fully seen him go all out. The one time we heard about him going all out, it was off screen. It was a 10-day fight. Don't know what else to tell you. Alright, so breaking into the top 5 now. We're breaking officially into the top 5, and we are going to start off with Charlotte Linlin, Big Mama. Big Mom herself. And this is a worthy spot for her. I think she has showcased her definite multiple weaknesses. She has a very powerful Devil Fruit, but with a couple of glaring weaknesses. Jinbei exploited. I exploited them once upon a time. And honestly, she has so many temperamental issues. She has so many personality and just psychological issues that hold her back way more than they help her. The feeding frenzies, you know, the Mother Caramel thing, the Soul Pocus, all this. And I'm not even counting the amnesia. That was just a fluke thing, you know. But all these things that hold her back. I mean, usually you have a character like Kaido or someone who's just filled with pride or arrogance. They can't believe that someone could ever hurt them, you know, and that ends up being their downfall. She's got that in spades herself, and she still does while she lost a fight. She's even crying like, you didn't defeat me, I'm coming back, and then officially she lost. But we still have Big Mom with a slew of psychological issues. Too many glaring weaknesses to count. I'm not arguing that she is still one of the strongest characters in One Piece. Hell, she's top 5. But I feel like she's not necessarily nerfed by these abilities, but her Devil Fruit, while OP in some regards, has the glaring weakness of other characters just aren't going to buy it. Look at Jinbei. If it doesn't work on Jinbei, I have no reason to believe that anybody in the top 10 is going to affect either. And if it doesn't affect them, then that's a big part of Big Mom's arsenal that just got lost. Granted, it's only one of the multifaceted abilities of her Devil Fruit, but still. You know, I find like Big Mom is clearly one of the weaker of the Yonkers. Granted, it can still kick Blackbeard's ass. But, once again, I don't believe that's actually saying much myself, as you guys know from my rant earlier. So, yeah, I just feel that Big Mom, I don't think I need to defend this any longer. Big Mom is 5, and I believe that the other 4 above her, top 5 out of the entirety of One Piece is nothing to sneeze at. So, and if you argue with the next 4, let me know down in the comments below, but we're moving on. Now, number 4 is considered the strongest of all the admirals. Once again, Garp is not an admiral. Neither is Sengoku. The strongest admiral, and now current fleet admiral of the entirety of the Marine Force, Sakazuki. Used to be known as Akainu, or Akainu. I was surprised by how far I ranked this guy up. This one is not for the community. This one is just for honest facts. Out of the Marines, not Garp Sengoku, out of the Marines, he's clearly the strongest. He scares off Blackbeard, which once again, lukewarm feat at that point, right? With my opinion on Blackbeard, but for some people that should be a feat. If you hold Blackbeard in high regard, then you also have to hold the feat that he runs away from Sakazuki when he shows up as a feat for Sakazuki. His devastating strength and abilities, his Devil Fruit is stated to be the most destructive one with the most singular destructive force, I believe is the word used, because the Gura technically can destroy the world or whatever. However that works. But either way, one of the most powerful Devil Fruits. He is showcased to have a strong black and white tunnel vision, where he is just going to destroy all. So there's no psychological things holding him back. There's no weaknesses, and we can see he's been conniving, like with the Squardo thing and stuff like that. He is definitely sure of himself. He's so sure of himself that there's nothing to exploit, like King losing his mask and losing his cool, Katakuri being seen eating donuts, any of these weaknesses that hold other people back, Luffy being naive, all these things, Big Mom and her 900 issues. Nothing's holding this man back. He sees the world in black and white, and he believes he knows what right and wrong is, and we have no reason to believe there's anything that ever is going to change his mind. His absolute justice, as far as power scaling and battle is concerned, is probably one of the best attitudes as far as a duel or a fight. Because he's never going to doubt himself. He's always going to be sure of his course. He's the strongest admiral. And now the fleet admiral. And when we see him back in the story, he is going to showcase that. I think that out of all the admirals, he is the closest one, not Garp Sengoku, not counting them, but the closest one to being in the Yonko ranks, as far as who could fight one of the Yonkos 1v1. I'm not saying that Akainu could win, and I hesitate to put him above Big Mom. The reason is, the more we know of Big Mom, and 2 years ago, I would have said no way is Big Mom weaker than any of the admirals. But with all her bullshit, with all her psychological problems and all her wishy-washiness throughout the last 2 arcs that we've seen, she is her own worst enemy. And I believe that Akainu would exploit that. If he had even an inkling, he would exploit it, and he would manage to squeak out a win. It would still be a high diff fight, but it is what it is. Sakazuki, the red dog, is at number 4. Alright, so now for another, we haven't had another controversial one since spot number 7, I believe. So let's move on to number 3, which is going to be one of the most controversial ones I point out, I believe. But remember, still in the top 3, Kaido of the Beasts is at number 3. Now, before you start shooting, before you start, bombing the comment section with, I don't know what I'm talking about, let's just reiterate one thing. One thing. The thing that so many fans have taken like the goddamn gospel and ran with it. Ran with it for years. Which is 1v1 Kaido wins. You've heard that, right? Evidence in the story says Shanks beat Kaido. So where did everyone all of a sudden get off on the idea that had any goddamn merit? What actually happened, let's refresh, because this is called, there's a couple of terms for it, and I forget the exact one, so I won't pretend that I know. But scotoma, I believe, is one term for this. But basically what it means is that we remember something differently. It's adjusted memory. We've heard something so much and we believe it to be the truth. Sort of like a movie line. Play it again, Sam, for example. Super famous movie line. Even if you've never seen Casablanca, never said in the movie. Right? Things like that. May the Force be with you. Han Solo was the one to say it, not Obi-Wan. The most famous Star Wars line. It was said by Han Solo in the movie, not by anybody else in that entire movie. Things like that. So, going off of that, the fact of the matter is that what is actually said is, it is said, this was not in an SBS, by the way, which is another thing that people tend to believe. This was not an SBS. Kaido was introduced at a certain point, and in the manga, I forget which chapter, and I'm not, this top 30 video is going to be over an hour long, so do your own damn research. But at the end of the day, look it up. It says, at one panel, it was in the narrative boxes of the chapter that it is said, not told, not confirmed, it is said. Which, by the way, it is also said that Luffy is the 5th Emperor. Just keep that up here. It is said that if you're fighting against Kaido, Kaido wins. That's not exactly the exact quote, but it's something similar, and there's multiple translations. But at the end of the day, that was in a chapter. It is said. It's like reading a newspaper. It is said. It's not confirmed. It's not written in stone. Oda didn't say, oh yeah, Kaido defeats everyone solo in the verse. Nobody can touch him. Roger would lose. He never said that. It was in a manga chapter. And we have evidence to believe that Kaido would lose. His Hall of Fame that people are calling it, right? The Hall of Fame that he saw when he was fighting Luffy. Shanks was there. Of course he was. Because Shanks was confirmed to fight with Kaido and show up to Marineford. How, if Kaido's so strong, 1v1 bet on Kaido, how did Shanks show up and not Kaido? It was, before we even got the chapter about Kaido, 1v1 bet on Kaido, it was clear that Shanks was stronger. I've never understood this. For 10 years, I have tried to wrap my brain around people using that as an argument. It makes no sense. It's said. It is said. Commonplace. Context. That is all that we have. Now, Kaido is super strong. Kaido is number 3 for a reason. Kaido is no slouch. Kaido has got to be one of the strongest. He's known as the strongest beast. But he put Odin, Shanks, Whitebeard, Roger, and Rocks all above him in the Hall of Fame. There is only a handful of people that can fight me. You think you're as strong as them. Thinking about Luffy. There you go. He basically told us, here's 5 people that can beat me. Whether it's high diff or not, Kaido believed it. So there you go. And how would a man who supposedly, how was he captured and defeated? Like, it just didn't make sense. Anybody who uses the 1v1 Kaido argument just didn't read the manga. Or is a victim of Scotoma. The mind sees what it chooses to see and chooses to remember. Selected memory. It was never stated that 1v1 Kaido wins. It was suggested that the world, that the general populace of the One Piece, uninformed One Piece world, would bet on Kaido in a clash. If you went to Vegas, you would bet on Kaido. But you know what? Betting on Kaido is the same as betting on the 16-0 New England Patriots for the Super Bowl. And guess what happened? They lost. It's a great bet. Doesn't mean it's written in stone. So Kaido, for all his greatness, has to sit at number 3 because he's not invincible. And we're being shown and proven that. Hell, we know for a fact that Rayleigh, Whitebeard, and Roger could all use the same level of Conqueror's Haki that Luffy is exhibiting right now to damage Kaido. That Zoro used to damage Kaido. Odin could do it. By that logic, I would argue that I'm sure Sengoku and Garp can do it. How would Garp, like, it's not confirmed that Garp has Conqueror's Haki, but there's no way he doesn't, because how would he have clashed with these monsters? How would he been considered a rival for so many years if he didn't? So, at the end of the day, Kaido is powerful. Kaido is strong. But he's not indestructible. And we're about to see the loss. Granted, a very heavy-weighted loss where he has fought dozens of people. But still, he is about to lose here in Wano. And that's why he's ranked number 3, because I've never bought into the 1v1 Kaido wins thing. It came from a manga panel that was misinterpreted for years. So, jumping into the top 2, I'm sure you guys know exactly what characters we're going to bring up now. And I'm sure you love my logic right now. My logic about Blackbeard, my logic about Kaido, my logic about Ben Beckman, my logic about everything. I'm sure you guys are absolutely eating this up like it's a breakfast cereal and you're starving in the morning. I'm sure you guys love this. Yeah, anyways, moving on to the last 2, because this video is going to be so long. Number 2, you guys guessed it, the world's strongest swordsman, Mihawk. Dracula Mihawk. I don't really think I need to explain. The dude is even with Shanks. We are told, and there's no reason to deny or suspect, that he's any weaker than Shanks. We don't know who won the duel. Nobody lost their life. Nobody lost limb. Whitebeard called it one of the greatest fights he's ever seen. I don't really think I need to explain any further. It's Mihawk. World's strongest swordsman. How many characters use swords in this series? He's apparently better than them all. And nobody argues it. Nobody disputes it. I just don't see, if he's a rival to Shanks, a Yonko, that tells me he's Yonko level. And if he's Yonko level, where does he rank on the Yonkos? Well, right around Shanks. And moving on to number 1, I think we answered our question here. It's Shanks. It's red hair D. Shanks. The man, the myth, the legend. The one who showed up in front of every warlord, including the fan favorite Dofi, Mihawk himself, who said, "No, I'm not fighting. This ain't fair." Showed up Whitebeard pirates, the strongest Yonko crew at the time. Stopped Kaido before showing up. The only one not involved with this was Big Mom, okay? Everybody else was there. Kaido shows up with King, and Shanks says, "No, fuck off." That happens. So okay. All the Marines are there. Even Sengoku, Garp, all the main ones. All the vice admirals, the 3 admirals, they're all there. Blackbeard and his entire crew are there. The entirety of the Whitebeard crew. Everybody's there. Shanks shows up, stops the strongest admiral's punch, and says, everybody sit down. I'm ending this war. It took 2 minutes for the man to end the war. He went, picked up the straw hat, and said, this is over. If anybody else wants to fight, let's do it. How about it, Blackbeard? Mr. It's my era. You sure about that? Sure about that, punk? And Blackbeard backed the fuck down. The Marines, Akainu, I don't know where Mr. Absolute Justice went, because he ran like a dog with his tail between his legs. A red tail, but a tail nonetheless. And then Sengoku said, all right, red hair. All right. We're good. The war is over. That is a feat. Everyone's saying, oh, we haven't seen Shanks do anything. We haven't seen Shanks do anything. Remember when he stopped the strongest admiral's punch for fun? Remember that? With one arm? And remember when he said, hey, every strongest character in the verse other than Big Mom is here. I'm telling you all to sit the fuck down. Any objections? And they said no. What more do you want? You don't need more than 1 feat if your 1 feat is to tell the entire verse, I'm stronger than you, fight me if you disagree. And they said no. The only 2 who weren't there was Big Mom and Kaido literally got his shit kicked right before Marineford off screen by the man who showed up. So if you want to argue that Big Mom, I guess, could have went up there and, Mama, I'm not listening to you, red hair. She'd be stupid, but she hasn't exactly proven that she's the smartest cookie, you know. So, yeah, I don't think it's arguable that Shanks is top of the verse, because he told everyone else on this list to sit down, and they did. And Mihawk is apparently his strongest rival, from what we're led to believe. There's no reason to believe they got any weaker, only stronger. So Mihawk's clearly Shanks level, and if Shanks is number 1, then Mihawk's number 2. It just makes logic sense in my brain, but that is it. That's officially, I have finally, for the first time, made my top 30. And I know there's going to be a lot of arguments about this list. I know everyone, not a single person is going to agree with this list. I know that, but I don't agree with anybody else's list either. So, I mean, relatively speaking. Everybody's going to have a disagreement on, oh, this person is in number 11th, they should be number 17th. This person is in number 26, they shouldn't even be on the list, you know, etc. Well, where's this character, where's that character, etc., right? Everybody's going to have those opinions. And that's fine. That's what a power ranking list is. That's what a top 30 list is. It's no different than a waifu tier list. It's no different than a manga tier list. It's no different than an anime tier list. It's no different than any of that stuff. It's the exact same thing. It's what you believe from your reading and your perspective and your opinion. Right? Now, granted, there are some crazy outlandish things. And I've got a couple here. I've got a couple nuggets for debate. And I know that. There's a little personal bias. There's a little bit of that. But I think everybody's list has that. The fact of the matter is that, you know, there's some that's just way outlandish that goes beyond opinion. But for the most part, I think I've made a good argument for all of them. Some of them lackluster. Some of them me just fangirling over the character more than actually doing a power scaling thing. But, yeah. We have officially done the top 30 One Piece characters video. This took a long time for me to put together. This took a long time for me to record and play around with the list. As I said, this is like my 12th, 13th revision of this thing. I kept switching places for different characters, making better arguments, worse arguments for why this character was stronger than that character. It is very difficult, and as I said, you can tear off some of these characters. Like, you can take the top 5 and just put them in their own little bracket, right? Like, any one of them might be able to beat the other, you know what I mean? There's got to be that sort of thing. Sort of like Kaido's Hall of Fame, you know? He's like, all right, these 5 are the strongest. I don't really know what order, but they're the strongest, you know what I mean? Like, you can sort of do that with my list a little bit here and there. And I think you can do that with almost everybody's list. But yeah, that being the case, this was actually a lot of fun to put together, though it did sort of rack my brain a little bit at times. Yeah, I understand why people only do this once a year. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to put this together and actually make a good argument. You think it's so easy, but once you once you get going with it, it's like, oh, what about this character? What about that character? Can he really beat this? Can he really beat that? And then you get in the head of the power scaler, which is always very dangerous. And, yeah. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you bring some comments. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. I'm sure you guys are all going to argue. It's fine. I expect it. But, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed One Piece content, right? Am I right or am I right? So, thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Fourth and most importantly, drink responsibly, as I always do. And we will see you guys back here next time. Not for another one of these One Piece lists for a long time, because this was, this was a thing. Alright, see you back here next time. Bye-bye.